Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the August 21st, 2013 Pittsburgh Board of Education Legislative Meeting. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off all cell phones and pagers or put them on vibrate. Would everyone please rise so that we can salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Weiss, can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley?
Here.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Here.
Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Fink is absent. Mrs. Azuda?
Here.
Dr. Hawley?
Here.
Mr. Eisler?
Present.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Ms. Shealy? Shealy is absent. 7 members present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weiss. The Pittsburgh Board of Education initially selected 5 areas of concentration for board governance: education, support, safety, equity, engagement, and least but not of all, achievement. The thought was, by focusing on 5 areas for governance of the board, that whether or not we get along with each other or don't like each other or not, but if we're all focused on the same commitments, beliefs, and goals, that would drive decision-making and allow a lot of decisions to be done in the context of achieving the commitments, goals, and beliefs. The Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to educating all children to their highest level of academic achievement. We're committed to providing a safe and orderly learning environment for all students and employees. We are committed to providing efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. We are committed to distributing resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And we're committed to improving public confidence and encouraging strong parent-community engagement in the district. As mentioned, in being committed to providing a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees, I have the following statement at this time. We must express the concern of this board about the cowardice act that left a burned image of a cross on the grounds of one of our schools on August 9th, 2013. We are grateful to our facilities division for removing the burned section of lawn immediately after law enforcement completed their investigation at the scene, ensuring students are not greeted by this hateful image when they arrive to school next week. While we are greatly displeased by the incident, we know that this act is not reflective of the school's community, a school community that has worked together to maintain a safe and welcoming environment for its students, and that has been recognized for these efforts. The district is committed to ensuring that this school remains a place where all students feel welcomed and safe. And we are confident that the school is committed to working towards that goal. The district and the school's principal are developing short and long-term strategies to address not only this incident, but any underlying racial tensions. Our goal is to ensure one school community without any division among us. To do this, meetings will be held between the principal, staff, members, teachers, district leaders, and community partners. This Thursday, representatives from the district's leadership team and equity office will be on hand at the school's back-to-school night event from 5 to 7 p.m. Please know that we take such incidents very seriously and will not tolerate any behavior which negatively impacts our children and their families. The district is vigorously supporting law enforcement's investigation of this incident, and it is our sincere hope that the perpetrator is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And with that being said, the fact that we are all operating off of learned behavior, so to carry on traditions from the past, knowing the full implications of these actions, I think at this point in time is something that we have to get beyond. And if we are, as a school district, going to educate all children, we have to keep that as our focus. The education of the children and their future, which will be our future, and make sure that there's nothing to hinder that. And anybody that acts out any type of act of that nature, they will suffer the consequences. Will everyone please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? I'd like to have a motion that we approve the minutes of the July 24th legislative meeting, moved by Mr. Eisler, seconded by Mrs. Khaleesi. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. The minutes stand approved. At this time, I'd like to read the executive session statement. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting on July 24, 2013, the board met in executive sessions on August 5, 2013, on August 19, 2013, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include but are not limited to administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. The board does not vote at executive sessions. We will begin first this evening with the committee report on education that is before you. There were no items pulled from the education report at agenda review for further discussion. Are there any questions at this time? Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. On number 17 of page 9, this is the transportation reimbursement for the Pittsburgh Online Academy. I was under the impression this item was going to be pulled.
Mrs. Khaleesi, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
I'd like to hand it to Dr. Lane at this time.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi and Mr. Sumter. Yes, this item is being pulled. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the committee report on education? Dr. Holly?
Yes, for item number 14, Dr. Lane, we do have an inclusion of another school. Oh, I see it's on here. Thank you very much. That is included. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report, committee report on education? Seeing no hands raised, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Report's approved 7-0.
We will now move on to the committee report on business finance submitted by Mr. McCray, Business Finance Chair, and his committee. There were no items pulled from the business finance report at agenda review for further discussion. Before we begin discussion, Mr. Joseph, would you like to provide us with an update on item 16, automobile liability insurance?
Yes, Ms. Sumter. In your folder, you'll find the replacement tab for item 16, which is the renewal for the automobile liability insurance, and I'll read that resolution. Resolved that the Board of Directors of the School District of Pittsburgh authorize the renewal of the automobile liability and garage keepers liability insurance coverage through Aon Risk Service Central, Inc. for Travelers Insurance Company for the period September 1st, 2013 to September 1st, 2014, at a base premium of $133,059, payable from account line 001 0201 010 2590 523.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Mrs. Khaleesi?
When you read the numbers, it's different than the number that's listed here. If I may, I'll read to you what's in our book. It's 001 0201 101 2590 523. For the record, which one is correct, Mr. Joseph?
For the record, the one that I read, which is 001 0201 010 2590 523.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Thank you, Ms. Khaleesi, for bringing that up. Are there any questions or comments, concerns from agenda review that were not answered? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Zuna?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Report's approved 7-0.
Let's now move on to the report on personnel that is before you that includes addendums A, B, and C. Are there any questions on the personnel report at this time? Mr. McCray.
I usually like to go last, but I do want to recognize our employees that are serving their country in the military and thank them for a job well done.
Any other questions, comments on the personnel section? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, can we, Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I will be abstaining on the entire personnel report. I have some concerns on some of the items, too many to list or talk about, and then not having enough information to make the right decision. So I will be simply abstaining on the entire report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call?
I just want to make one comment because we do not have a full complement of board members here. These personnel items require 5 affirmative votes under Section 508 of the school code, regardless of the fact that there are not 9 persons here. So I just want to be clear, so every board member is clear as to how this works. With that, I'll call the roll. Mr. Brentley?
Abstain.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes on the report as a whole. Page 41, number 2A, I abstain.
Mrs. Zuna?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes on the report as a whole. I abstain on page 38, number 5. I also abstain on addendum B, page 2, number 2, addendum C, page 1.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Report's approved.
I'd like to call the board's attention to the financial statement and report of the controller, both dated July 31st, 2013. Are there any questions? Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. If I may direct my questions to Mr. Joseph, both about this report and about the recent financial report that were sent to all board members concerning an audit. First, if we can deal with tonight's 12-month rolling forward. The board has been interested in the effect on the school district's revenues in terms of the reassessments of the real estate. We now are into let's say the month of August, but cleaning up the month of July, which is what we're looking at. How are the revenues coming in this year compared to last year, and given what your estimates were for this year's versus what is actual?
The revenues are about $9.5 million behind last year on a 12-month roll-forward basis. So I'll be looking to make the appropriate adjustments to revenues, taking into account some of the change in property value information that I've been receiving from the county.
And can you just briefly give us, again, I'm asking these cold to you tonight with no computer in front of you and not your records, but how does that break out from the earned income tax versus the property tax?
So actually that number that I stated was for property tax.
Property.
Just property. The earned income is up about $8 million.
Thank you. If we then can go, because I want to ask a question about the financial report and the audit. Is that posted on our website for the public to see?
I will have to check to see if the full audit's posted. I believe that we do post the comprehensive annual financial report, so I will check to see if that's posted on the website.
Just for the public's information, on that audit report, was it a clean audit, and were there any exceptions or anything that this board and this district needs to be concerned about?
There was one minor finding regarding allowable costs, but that was quickly corrected.
So that audit, again, was a clean audit on the school district?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Thank you and your staff for your hard work. Thank you, Mr. Sumter.
You're welcome, Mr. Eisler. Any other comments regarding the financial statements? Seeing none, we're going to move on. There are 2 new business items before us this evening. I will read the first item at this time. Mr. Williams, do I have to read the whole thing or just the resolved? The first one is New York University Metropolitan Center for Urban Education, Pittsburgh Perry High School. Resolved that the Board of Directors of the School District of Pittsburgh authorize its proper officers to renew the contract. New York University Metropolitan Center for Urban Education and the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education and Human Development at New York University. They will continue to provide support August 22nd through September 30th, 2013 at Pittsburgh Perry High School. This will be the second year Pittsburgh Perry High School has partnered with New York University Metropolitan Center for Urban Education. The Metro Center will continue to assist with student academic support and increase parent involvement. Additionally, the Metro Center will assist with the new Pittsburgh Perry High School discipline leveling system. In your new business item, it goes on with more specifically centered around, but you've heard the resolution as read in the resolved portion of the new business item. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns regarding this new business item? Do we have to move it into? Can we have a motion for? It's been moved by Mr. Eisler and seconded by Mrs. Khaleesi. Discussion. Mr. Brentley.
Yeah, Dr. Lane, I am somewhat confused about this item before us. The period for this new business item is August 22nd through September 30th. It's what's a month contract or just for a month?
Yes, Mr. Brentley, it is just a month. And as you're probably aware, last year Perry paid for working with NYU through their SIG grant, School Improvement Grant. And we have an amount in that grant that must be expended by September 30th. And so that's why we brought it to you tonight as new business. Perry is also going to be seeking going forward an extension of the work beyond September 30th, but that part's still working, and we're also waiting to make sure our funds are being carried over. So this is as far as we could go tonight. We do anticipate, pending a positive report from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, we can carry funds forward, that you would see a second item for the rest of the year.
Now, Dr. Lane, in the beginning, I guess for the Perry-Oliver merger, there was, if I'm not mistaken, $1 million available for the merger for Perry from the Heinz Foundation. Is that correct?
Mr. Brentley, I can't honestly say, I don't believe there was $1 million from Heinz for Perry, but I will check. But I do know that Perry did receive a school improvement grant, and they had funds available through that.
Okay, because here's my concern, Doctor. There are some values to the services by Dr. Nagaro, and if we are starting to, raise some questions about the availability of funds to keep moving it forward, it concerns me. Secondly, in the middle of last year, I believe, there were always were concerns about the problems at Westinghouse, or the issues at Westinghouse, and then there was an agreement for Dr. Nagaro to go into Westinghouse as well. And I believe it was taken from the same dollars. If that's the case and his services there at Westinghouse, will he continue his work at Perry and Oliver? Because both, in my opinion, are what I'm calling Perry and at Westinghouse. Thank you. I consider both of them to be transitioned teams, or in transition. Will they continue to work with both? And if those dollars were set aside for them, well, what do they have to work with? Is it enough to get them through another year? And was the original agreement for the 3 years?
No, the original agreement was not for 3 years, but as I said, we do believe we're going to get a positive response from the Pennsylvania Department of Education on carrying forward our funds. Therefore, yes, there would be enough money available at Perry to complete the year. There is not right now a plan to work additionally at Westinghouse. Westinghouse is looking at support from some other venues, so to speak, or organizations. And there was that opportunity at Westinghouse, but they decided they wanted to go a different direction.
Okay. Well, I just want to wave my flag early on, Doctor, because Westinghouse, always in transition, at least for the last 2 or 3 years, new principal, and we're beginning to not allow those same services and resources to go to him. And I put him in the same category, Westinghouse in the same category as Perry. We should be unloading every opportunity to make these, get both of these schools through this period. If we're not sure, you continue to say there's some additional monies coming from the state. What was given by the Heinz Foundation to Perry? Because I know that there were dollars given early on for the transition period.
And maybe someone can remind me, but I don't believe that I recall that $1 million was given to Perry by Heinz. But let me be clear on Westinghouse. It was not that Westinghouse didn't have the resources or someone told them they couldn't. They decided that they wanted to go a different, this was the principal's decision. This was not anyone telling them he couldn't do this, or that there wasn't, because there are funds available at Westinghouse as well. But the leadership at Westinghouse, principal, and his leadership team decided they wanted to go a different direction.
Okay. Well, when they say different directional, sometimes it's a little different. We as a district or as an administration sometimes may put things on them that may be difficult for them to bear. Did we remind them that this was available, or did we say it's available at your expense?
They have the money. They have the grant. I mean, they have a grant to provide additional resources to Westinghouse. So it wasn't that it was coming out of their decentralized budget or anything like that. And yes, they were aware it was available and chose to use their resources toward other support.
Okay, available meaning no cost to them.
Well, it's their grant. I mean, it is a grant, Mr. Brentley. It is supplemental funds, and it is accessible by them. So the grant would have to be spent on something related to improving the school. So it's not like you could use that grant money for your operating costs. But they had the money, they had the choice, and they chose that they wanted to use some other supports.
Okay. Well, Doctor, I'd like at a later date, if you can, someone can just give me an accurate account of what was given to the transition school with Perry, the amount, and I thought it was from Hines. I don't know, we go through a lot here. And if it was, what is the balance on those dollars? And,
Okay, I'm asking Ms. Burgess to see if she recalls what you're making reference to, and I think she knows, so let's ask her.
Good afternoon, Vi Burgess. There was $1 million that was provided by the Hines Foundation. $420,000 of those dollars was set aside for NYU, with $80,000 of those dollars for Dr. Noguero to support the equity plan. Remaining fundings for that grant was for equity training and additional work, i.e. parents' conference, to support those items as outlined in the equity plan.
okay. Now, were those are things that we adjusted at a later date? Or were those dollars that, why am I thinking originally that was $1 million going for the transition? And when I heard later on that they were tapping into it for Westinghouse, I said, that's appropriate, because they can also benefit from it there. So that's why it concerns me when we have an item here and we have a question mark on if we're going to be able to afford his service for the rest of the year.
Yep. The original grant was $420,000. Westinghouse provided $80 additional $1,000, and Perry $20 additional $1,000 for the support of the services that NYU was provided.
Okay. Now, well, you know what, let me do this. If someone can just give me something, I'm kind of visual on this, the amount that we received and the total amount, what it was originally earmarked for, and then the balance, and then somebody walk me through the affordability of having Dr. Nogueros. It is my understanding that they're getting something from him. It is still a hot situation there, so we should not be in the business of pulling anything back, number one, and number two, pulling resources from the school to have them to provide for. We should continue as an administration to provide those funds for these transition teams. So I'll let it go there. I thought it was a little bit more. I'll support this, but I'm curious to see the future of the services of Dr. Noguero throughout the district, especially for Westinghouse and for Perry. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brantley. And Mr. McCray?
Just real quick, is there going to be an evaluation available before we go to the next level of the grant?
Yeah, before we would ask you to approve the next level, we will have information to you regarding the work of last year and what results we see.
Dr. Holly?
I too want to piggyback on Mr. McCray's request. Because I'm looking at the three goals that you have for them to continue this work. Are these three goals the same three goals that they had in place before?
I'm sorry, Dr. Hawley, I don't have a working knowledge of the last year's proposal well enough to tell you that. I do know that as they begin to talk about work for this year, I told them that we need to be really clear on stating what the goals were so that we can then conduct the kind of evaluations that this board has asked for. So there have to be goals in order to evaluate against them.
Okay, but on this reporting system, during a 6-week reporting period, detailing how their support will assist it in the gains of academic student engagement, assisted in the implementation of the new discipline leveling system with a target of 10% decrease of chronic severe absenteeism and suspension rates. And 3, engaged parents and community members to participate in Perry's school community. Are they going to be able to evaluate these 3 goals within 6 weeks?
What the evaluation I was speaking of was the evaluation of last year's work, not this 6-week little snippet, because they were there all last year. So that's what we're asking them to evaluate.
So when am I going to get, so in September, I assume that you're going to go over the school report card, basically, for each school. So Perry should be able to show us where they made gains academically, that they're, I don't know, you're going to be able to show us a new discipline leveling system, and what did they do to decrease, 10% decrease of chronic severe absenteeism and suspension rates. And I want to make sure that everybody understands the absenteeism is separate from being suspended.
Dr. Hawley, the goal, I am not sure that the work last year was centered on the goals that you see here. But Dr. Atua is here and has been working with the school, and Ms. Sacco on this, so maybe you can say a little more.
So what we are trying to do this year is have a comprehensive plan, because last year they focused mostly on academics. This year we wanted them to focus on the whole school. Discipline, parent involvement. Also, we had an issue with absenteeism last year at the school. So this year we want them to be part of that process. We have a plan in place that we are using to implement what we're going to be doing throughout the year.
Well, let me correct you. You had an absenteeism problem at Perry for 2012. If they're rated as the #1 school with the highest absenteeism rate in the whole city of Pittsburgh, then we had a problem before. And I want to be very clear that this problem happened before the Oliver students were actually folded into that school. So we're not going to blame this on the Olivers. I mean, I'm not saying that you would, but I just want to be very clear that it's not the Oliver students that made this problem. This was a problem before, which this board told us that, I mean, the board was told that the attendance rate was fine at Perry, but then we find out, you know, they had some severe problems there, which I'm glad to see that you're going to be working on that for this year. But I just don't know how you're going to do that. These activities are going on in 6 weeks, but you're telling me that these activities are going to be the extension for the entire school year for Perry.
So what we're planning to do is set benchmarks, because we want to be able to make sure that we're reaching our target each grading period. We put 6 weeks in this report because this board tab is only for 5 weeks, so we wanted to be able to evaluate them before we extend the board tab for October. But we will be looking at our benchmark every 9 weeks at the end of every report card period to make sure that we are meeting our targets and benchmark to be able to meet the target at the end of the year. We want to hold people accountable so we know where we are, where we need to go, but in between, there has to be benchmarks that are met.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just asking you, are these the 3 goals that you're going to be working on for the entire school year?
Definitely, but a more expanded version in
Okay.
our report, definitely.
Okay, just wanted to know that these are the 3 goals that you're actually going to be working on. Okay. But are these the 3 goals that you worked on all last year as well? Or did you just work on the academic student engagement?
With NYU was mostly the academic, but the school was working on these goals. Now we want to make everything comprehensive. We do not just want a partner that is working on one part. We wanted a partner that is working on everything that the school is working on.
Okay, so then I'm going to be able to see exactly what you did last year to compare with what you're going to do for this upcoming school year. And we would see whether or not this was actually working as to what they did for last year. I'm just concerned because the school has had some really troubling growing pains. And since it is the only high school on the north side where all of the children who are not able to get into magnets anywhere else, this is their feeder school, we have to make sure that this school is working because we have so many students and they're designated to go to this particular school. So I am going to be looking at this very carefully. I'm just putting this out front so everybody knows up front. because we want to make sure that that it's working for the students there and the families in that community.
Thank you, Dr. Holly. Any more questions or comments on the new business item? Just for the sake of the record, I just want to state the last sentence, which says the operating period shall be from August 22nd, 2013 through September 30th, 2013. The total contract amount should not exceed $23,000 from account line 4319-19M-2271-324. And also in the items that Dr. Holly was referring to, it does say that New York University, I'll just read that part. New York University Metropolitan Center for Urban Education and the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education and Human Development at New York University will provide evidence during the 6-week reporting period detailing how their support assisted in the gains of academic student achievement, assisted in implementation of the new discipline leveling system with a target of a 10% decrease in chronic severe absenteeism and suspension rates, and number 3, engaged parents and community members to participate in Perry School community, just for information purposes and clarification. And it does say they will provide evidence. However, we do have a policy in place that somewhat addresses this type of concern. Any other comments or concerns on this new business item? If not, Mr. Weiss, will we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Ms. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Zuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Reports approved, the new business items approved 7-0.
The next new business item is the resolution for Superintendent Linda Lane's performance priorities for 2013-2014. This was presented by the Personnel Committee, Gene Fink, Chair. Whereas the Pittsburgh Board of Education at its legislative meeting on March 20th, 2013, appointed Dr. Linda Lane to the position of Superintendent of the School District of Pittsburgh for the period March 20th, 2013 through June 30th, 2016. And whereas the Board of Public Education also approved the employment contract for Dr. Linda Lane as a Superintendent of Schools as part of the March 20th, 2013 resolution. And whereas the Board recognizes the evaluation of superintendent and the establishment of the superintendent's annual performance priorities as among its most important responsibilities, whereas the Board and Dr. Linda Lane have worked collaboratively to determine the superintendent's performance priorities for 2013-14, and whereas the Board and Dr. Linda Lane will develop and agree upon key indicators to measure the superintendent's progress under each of the agreed-upon priorities, and whereas the performance priorities and key indicators for 2013-2014 will become an addendum to Dr. Linda Lane's employment contract and shall be posted on the district's website. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Board hereby approves the following performance priorities for Superintendent Dr. Linda Lane for 2013-14. 1, accelerate student achievement. 2, eliminate racial disparities. 3, become a district of first choice. 4, develop a strong organizational culture that is student-focused. Be it further resolved that the Board and Superintendent Dr. Linda Lane will develop and agreed-upon key indicators to measure progress under each of the performance priorities. Can we have a motion? Mr. McCray, seconded by Mrs. Khaleesi. Any comments, questions, or concerns regarding this new business item? Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. The only thing I'm concerned about, and I did express this before, is where are the abilities to measure this? If I'm making sense. I'm looking to you because I figured.
Restate the question, please.
The ability to measure these items or these goals, we discussed that we would have specific tools to measure it, and well, yeah, but it says it's going to come later. We haven't seen it. Can you help me out?
They're still under development at this time. Dr. Lane?
The agreement that we made was that I would have those to you by the 15th of September.
Is that something that you're putting together and we are not participating with, or are we participating with what those measures will be?
My intention was to put them together and let you then review, revise.
So it would be a working in progress with,
Correct.
with both parties?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Brantley?
Yes, I have the same question that I had concerned last year. By the way, I will be abstaining from this item. My question last year were the measurables. Teach me, show me, direct me on how do you measure those items that you've read there? First choice of a school, relieving racial achievement gap. We are a district that is failing. This document can be given to any parent throughout this district, and they will be clueless as to finding how we measure and follow and go along. And so it continues to concern me. It's been pretty much the MO of this board over the last couple of years, and I do not have enough to change it in terms of giving the process a real bite so that we can begin to critically analyze and measure the success or the failure of the administration. And so it just continues to be a process to me, or a procedure. So I will not be supporting it. I'm slightly disappointed. I would like to know, where do the PSSA scores fit in? Are they available? Can we use that as part of the measurement? And if the final piece to this is going to be available in September the 15th, would it not make sense to wait and then do it all together once there is an agreement as to the process or how it's going to be measured? So this item is kind of a little premature, but I understand the process here. So I will be abstaining and just simply continue to hold out for those hundreds of parents who are crying out for help, hundreds of students who are crying out for real help. And so I will stand in for them by simply abstaining. My major goal, my second goal, is also, overall, I am concerned about the direction of this district. I've said before, and I'll say it again, that I believe that we should be moving in a different direction. We've been trying some things. They have not been successful for us. And so at some point, we have to have a jump-off point and simply try something different and move in a direction. And that concerns me because we're not. So I will be abstaining on this item. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions on this new business item? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Brentley?
Abstain.
Ms. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Zuda?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Board's approved, 6 yes, 1 abstention.
At this time, are there any announcements or information the board members want to bring before the public? Mr. Brantley?
Yes, I have a couple of items, but this item requires, I'm going to call a symbolic vote. I was contacted by the Urban Impact, which is a very, very active group on the north side. They're doing work on the Martin Luther King Field. $4,000 worth of work. They have a baseball league there, taking many of our kids off the streets and putting them in the baseball league. They received a grant, and they were getting ready to move forward to do the work, and someone told them that it needed our blessings, new to me. Not our money, not going through us, their grant, their program. So it was new to me. And so if it is appropriate, I'd like to put a motion on the floor, and I only have one copy, but I'll leave this here or make a copy of it. It is just a letter where they outlined the dollars, where they were getting the dollars from, and let me just read this last paragraph here. We are excited to begin this renovation as soon as possible. I am asking that the board approve the gift from the Urban Impact Foundation as an effort to improve the baseball field for our players. and then students at the Pittsburgh King Field for the community on the north side. Thank you for your consideration on this matter. We look forward to continuing the partnership with the Pittsburgh King Pittsburgh Public Schools. So it is $4,000, and I guess they need something to say that it's okay. So I don't know. I'd like to, that's a good question. I don't think we do, but somewhere someone said, yeah, it's good to get a,
Before we get too far along on this, to really, well, because this is under announcements, we can treat it and have questions and discussions about that, or if it's needed to put it in a formal motion, then we could have discussion about that. But at this point, let's go ahead and just have discussion at this time. Questions, Mr. Iser, you have your hand up?
I think that a couple things, Mr. Brentley, and I refer to Mr. Weiss. We do accept gifts at every board meeting. We accepted them tonight, right?
The code requires the board to accept gifts.
So we have a process whereby if a gift's going to be given, and it happens all the time, we accept them at all levels, every single board meeting. So one is, we do have a process to do it. All it has to do is come through the board process, a tab, it's within the tabs. So we do that. The second thing is, I think is really important, is do we actually own that property? There's a confluence of property over there, and if we own it, then what do we do? And what do we do by statute? I mean, how do we handle this?
Well, I don't know if the district owns this particular field. I don't know whether the district is receiving these funds and doing the work, or if this group is doing the work that has a value of $4,000, and there's a difference to that. So I can't answer most of those questions because I don't know enough about it. I'm not saying we can't do it, but those details I don't have.
Let's refer to Dr. Lane at this time.
We're trying to do a little research online right now, but to my knowledge, we don't own the property. The property around King School is city property, so, but we're checking to make sure. So my guess is, I don't know if the city told them that we had to say it was okay, or if they think it's ours and that's why we're asking, so I'm not sure.
I would think, this is just off the top of my head, if we don't own the property, that it doesn't require an official action by the board. However, if we find out that we do, then it could be brought before us at the next legislative meeting to accept the donation or the work. Either way, I'm just saying.
Well,
But go ahead, Mr. Brentley.
yeah,
the floor.
let me just say this so that we won't go 2.5 hours into this item. It is actually the work, they're trying to get the work started immediately. I don't know if they're playing now or they're preparing for fall ball, but I'll just read it. Let me just read the letter here. I think it's just all the parties involved, they just wanted to, since it's so close to Martin Luther King, we just want you to make sure that they accept that, knowing, and maybe it's an inconvenience for some of the students, but let me read it. My name is Matt Davis, and I am the baseball program leader for the Urban Impact Foundation. I am writing to inform you of some really exciting news. Urban Impact has received a grant from the Major League Baseball as part of their Baseball Tomorrow Fund. The grant is to be used for the purchase of services and/or supplies to improve the facility used by the youth in our organization. Since 2008, the Urban Impact Baseball Program, which is made up primarily of youth from the north side of Pittsburgh, has utilized the field at Pittsburgh King for practice and all home games. Because we look forward to using this field for our baseball program for many years to come, we would like to make an investment towards the safety, drainage, and playability of the field. In accordance with the requirements of the grant, we would like to use the funds from the grant to perform the following work on the baseball field at Pittsburgh King: professionally rebuilt pitcher's mound to Little League safety specifications, rebuild infield by adding several inches of infield mix and have it laser graded to improve. The total estimate amount of the Urban Impacts Grant in kind is roughly $4,000 and requires no financial investment from the Pittsburgh Public School District. I've consulted with the contractor, Sports Turf Specialties, who has extensive knowledge and experience working in the city and was referred to us by the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are excited to begin the new renovation as soon as possible. I am asking that the board approve the gift from the Urban Impact Foundation as an effort to improve the baseball field for our players, the students, and Pittsburgh King. Thank you very much for your consideration. Look forward and so on. So it is almost just pretty much a head nod that we're aware of it and that we support the improvement of it. Actually, I don't even think, he said the grant is kind of an in-kind, so I'm not even, maybe the work is going to be done in-kind service. But, I would like to put it in the form of a motion that if we do nothing else but to simply say yes to this information here, that we support whatever they're going to do for kids, for, in the field. And if there's an addition, that we direct Mr. Ron Joseph's office to make some contact. We want to do our part and not slow the process up if it's ready to go. You say it? If it's our property. And if it's not, it's a moot point. But, all right, well,
Please use your mics when speaking. This is a conversation period right now.
Mr. Brentley, any gifts that we get, and we get gifts every month from the community, I think it's important that we do recognize and we do thank people. I'd like to find out, mainly because of potential liability to the district, whether or not this is actually our property. I think if we accept a gift on behalf of the district, we have to find out what that means. Are there in-kind funds? Are they actual funds? And what is the potential liability to the district? I hate to say that, but I would hate to have people going on and doing something on a piece of property that's not ours after they think they have our blessing and we have no right to give it to them. So until we know who owns that property, I'm really concerned about them getting the idea that we're giving them the okay to go ahead and do this, and we don't have the right to do that.
Mrs. Azuda.
I was basically going to say the same thing. My suggestion would be to just give that letter to Mr. Joseph and have him contact them. And if it's not our property, then head it to the appropriate city parks group so that they can get their approval going as quickly as possible.
If I can make a suggestion here to move this along, because I did hear in the letter there is a time element here. Perhaps the board would consider approving it subject to confirmation by Mr. Joseph as the ownership of the property and subject to the approval of the solicitor. That way it's off of your table, but that's just a suggestion.
Dr. Holly?
With the language that Mr. Weiss has given us as our attorney, that might be the best way to, just settle this. If it is our property, subject to if it is our property, then it would, it would be okay. But if it's not, it really is a moot point. But if it is, and I also want to make sure that hopefully we don't have to do anything else with it. Do we have to add any more money to it in order to make it a viable field? We need to know all of that information.
Well, the understanding, if this is approved, will be that A, the ownership is confirmed, and B, that it will require no expenditure on the part of the district beyond the $4,000 that's being provided by Urban Impact, either in kind or in actual funds.
Okay. I think that's appropriate. Thank you for
Mrs.
that
Scalise.
clarification.
We just got done telling staff that we weren't happy with last-minute things, and here we are. I apologize that I had to step out, but I got the gist of it. I can't support that unless I'm comfortable that that went through staff. And I understand, but it could have been easily taken care of. You could have given it to staff and let them deal with it from there. And I would prefer it goes that way than it goes through us, and then staff has to deal with whatever is, is the result of this. I mean, it's wonderful that they can do this, and it's a great opportunity for us, if indeed it is our property, but I would rather staff handled it and dealt with it from the beginning. This way they know everything that's involved in it. We're just approving a letter we don't know what the details of all of this is involved in. So I'm not comfortable doing that and putting this district in that position.
Mrs. Azuda.
I still go back to thinking we need to give that letter to the facilities department, because you would never point blank just say, hey, here's a piece of property, go ahead and make any changes on it you want without talking to me. I mean, there has to be communication on the assumption that everything they're doing is wonderful. If it's our property, if everything they're doing aligns with what we need, then great, but somebody needs to look at it to make sure it does align.
Dr. Lang or Mr. Joseph, either one?
I just spoke to our maintenance foreman, and he informed me that he's pretty sure that we do not own the field, but he's checking on the city's website to verify that we don't own the field.
What did he say?
So we're at the point where, Mr. Brentley, if you want to put forth a conditional motion, if would be the operative word, that would, anything else that followed that would be based on that if it's our property, such and such, such and such, and if not, that would be the counter to that, which would have it no effect, but that's your choice. That's your choice.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor to hand over the urban impact letter to our solicitor and to communicate with the urban impact our support of their in-kind services and work that's going to be done to the Martin Luther King Field. And if
It's our
we
property.
do not own it, and if, with the language that Mr. Weiss said earlier, it's too much brain power on one small piece. So, Mr. Weiss, you know your language that you suggested, and that's the motion.
For the sake of clarity, Mr. Weiss, can you restate what you perceive to be the motion?
What you said before.
It's a tall order. I would suggest that the motion is reflected in Mr. Brentley's last comment, is that the board support the offer of the Urban Impact to provide $4,000 of in-kind services for the improvement of the baseball field at Martin Luther King, subject to the condition that the ownership of the property by the school district is confirmed, and subject to an agreement as drafted by the law department and executed on behalf of the district by the solicitor and the appropriate board officers.
You've heard the motion.
Second.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Brentley with the assistance of Solicitor Weiss and seconded by Dr. Holly. Discussion on the motion. We've discussed it without it being a motion, but if you want to continue on, but I think you've got the gist pretty much of this item, to not belabor the issue.
I just wanted to say everything that Mr. Weiss just said. That's what I meant to say.
Mrs. Khaleesi? Oh, okay. More questions, comments on the motion? There's a motion on the floor. Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley,
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi,
Forgive my ignorance, but am I voting on that second motion or on the whole thing?
voting on the one that I just stated.
I'm just voting on your motion.
Yes.
No.
Mrs. Azuda,
No.
Dr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. Eisler,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Abstain.
Mr. Sumter.
Yes.
Well, the vote is 421, I mean, it is
Your mic, your mic.
a vote to accept a gift. It's also a vote involving, the improvement of property, so I'd have to say it requires 5 votes. That did not receive 5 votes.
We're continuing with announcements. Mr. Brantley.
Well, Mr. Weiss, I'll just turn that letter over to you, and thank you once again for hindering baseball for the kids over at Northside. It's fascinating to watch this thing happen. They will be delayed until they get the letter of support or agreement from the district. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. I want to talk about a couple of other things that's really good and exciting, and they're really good for the district, and I'm so glad it doesn't require a vote because I'm sure that would fail as well. I want to talk about a report on the 16th annual Pittsburgh Public Schools Take a Father to School Day. I do have information. I'm going to ask Robin, 16, 15, 16, 16. Okay, 16th annual Take a Father to School Day, and I do have reports here hot off the press. Please take one. We are so pumped and so excited. Many of you know that this year was the first time ever we were able to attract dollars, especially foundation dollars, so we continue to put out a shout and a thank you to the folks at the Hines for their $45,000 grant, especially to Mr. Bobby Vaught, who believed in us and supported us. What you have before you is just a couple of the pictures, but what's really important is the narrative that you see after that. And then if you look at the final sheet, which is a copy of the proclamation that we received from Pittsburgh City Council. But what's interesting this time, we are growing to a point where there are now 14 partners that have established a relationship with this school district on this event, and all of the partners are listed before. The second most important thing is on the, I think it's page 4. No, it's not on page 4. Let's keep going. Okay. It should be on the last page, and it's not on the one that I have here. Oh, yes, it is, in the upper right-hand corner with the little graphs and charts. We put a call out at this table. I had said that we want to try to get close to 6,000 men that would participate in this one-day event. Last year, we've always stayed in the 5,400 and something, 5,600 and something. But we put a call out and a challenge to the men to try to exceed 600. And I am happy to report to those of you who play the Big Four, a number to play is 6,314. I think that's great. Come on, Ira. That's great. That's great. That's great. First time in this school district. Show me a school district in this country that can boast about bringing men out on one single day. That's young men, that's old men, that's black men, that's white men. And they were there to support this district and to support our children. No one can come close to that. So we're extremely happy about that. We have plans for the upcoming year that we'd like to share as we move forward. Dr. Lane, we want to say thank you to you and your staff who've worked very, very hard for us, because just working through the dollars, as I mentioned before, the committee is made up of about 11, 12 of us fathers, and we get together and we talk about what we'd like to do and go on and so on. But the order and the procedure and the process comes in, and it's followed when a young lady from Mrs. Burgess's office comes into the meeting. And so to Ms. Tracy Johns, we are so happy for you for keeping us on task and showing us that, with food, men can talk all day, but getting to the facts and putting things in order and getting it where it's presentable requires that of a very sharp young lady. So I want to say thank you to Ms. Tracy Johns. We probably couldn't have been able to get to this number, and we're extremely happy. We're going to try to build on it for next year and some of the other things. So we just want to say thank you so much. And also the 5th of August, 6 o'clock on PCTV, we're going to have a live call-in show where September 5th. It's a live call-in show, PCTV, where I will have our two consultants, Melvin Hubbard-Ill and Brandon Phillips, who worked tirelessly to make this thing such a success. And so we'll have them on. We will also show for the very, very first time our video. And some of these shots will bring tears to your eyes when you see men wanting to be a part of their children's education and standing up and getting involved. And we will show that for the first time. So we're just excited about it. Thank you so much. And I'd like to move on to another item I want to move forward on. There is, this year, we have 5 students, which is exciting. 5 students will be participating in the Precious to Cultured Pearls. It's a debutante that will be held, I believe, in December of this year, and it's given by the sorority AKAs. And we're excited. To those of you who aren't familiar with them, it is something that would simply, it will just make your heart weep to see our young ladies go through some intense training for months, and then they're presented to the public in full gown. There's a daughter-father dance, and it is a very, very formal event. I want to just mention the names because we're extremely proud of these 5 young ladies. And Dr. Lane, they will be coming through with a book for ads, and I'm hoping that the district would take out an ad in support of them as they represent the Pittsburgh Public Schools. The first one is Malika Fields. She's a 12th grader at Kappa. Diamond Green, who is a 12th grader at Obama. Mariah Howes is a 12th grader at Obama. Dalise Stallworth is an 11th grader at Obama. And Nakisha West is a 12th grader at Obama. It is my understanding, Dr. Lane, and we can look a little further, that one young lady, I actually believe that her mother is an employee of the district. Number 5? No. There is one young lady, it's her mother, and I believe she works in this building. And so if that is true, congratulations. And we're, Miss, is it her sister? Okay. Well, congratulations to her. It is it's a very, very good thing to be a part of. And I will make sure that when we have when it's finished, and I'll bring some pictures to show. One of the things, okay. And I believe that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Any other board members with comment? Dr. Lane first.
Mr. Joseph did get an answer on the property, and it was too unusual to not tell you, so you have to hear it.
So we own the infield and part of center field.
Repeat that.
So we own the infield and part of center field. So it's a square plot. So if you lay the square onto that plot of land, we own the infield and part of center field. And home plate as well. And we will work with Urban Impact to make sure that we can bring the acceptance of the funds and services through next month.
That's the most important thing, is what you just said, work with them so our kids can continue to play. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I guess I'm at a point where it just shows that if we go through the right procedures and bring items that percolate up to the board rather than at the last minute to the board table, we may have a intelligent means to deliberate and vote on items. However, I just want to clarify one item. Mr. Weiss cannot take credit for any part of that motion because he was not a party to the vote of that motion. Any other announcements?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
I just want to congratulate our students that got an award at the Shine Awards. The Shine Award is an award that's given out once a year to students, youth in the community that do exceptional service. And one of the groups that received an award this year was some students that go to the Obama School. I didn't bring their names, and I really should have, but I will bring them next month, so that you'll know their names. But it was a wonderful, wonderful event. But one of the other people that I wanted to recognize was one of our former employees, former principal, who is now a superintendent at Ambridge. She has a dance studio called Cynthia's. And at Cynthia's, they had, one of the students that won an award was a student that had cerebral palsy. And she was a dancer along with the other dancers. And it was so breathtaking and so moving to see that a major dance company in Allegheny County was opening their doors to all students, regardless of their ability. And this little girl talked about her wanting to be like her other friends in dance. And it was just so wonderful to see the clip that they had on the child and the dance company and how they embraced this youngster. So I just wanted to bring that up, that our employees, former employees and current employees, of course, do a wonderful job with students, and that our students were awarded awards at this wonderful event at the beginning of August. Thank you.
Ms. Hazuda.
When my youngest daughter, Shauna, was at Brashear, she was the captain of the cheerleaders and the yearbook editor, and as such was mentored by and had a very close relationship to who was her then teacher, Miss Jennifer Murphy. Jen became Dr. Murphy through a lot of hard work and left Brashear and went on to Carrick and is now leaving us. And it is definitely a loss to our district, but I want to wish Jen a lot of luck, Dr. Murphy, in her new position. And hope it fares well for her.
Mr. Brantley.
Yes, there were a few names that I forgot to thank who also stepped up for our Take a Father School Day. At the game, the baseball game, which we had an entire section, we were able to get what I call the terrible towels, and we had some other items. And we did not have the money budgeted for that, but there were some individuals who stepped up and picked up the tab, and so we want to give them a shout out. The first one is, I think somebody most of us know, that is Ira Weiss, Esquire, Law Office of Ira Weiss. Michael Palumbo, Esquire, from Campbell, Durant, Beatty, and Palumbo. And then Stacy Vernellis, Esquire, from Goering, Rudder, and Bohm. All three played a major role, and thank Mike Nicholas, Mike as well. And so all three stepped up and was able to make this thing a major, major success. And we thank them for them, and we hope that they continue to be our partners in the future. Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, announcements? At this time, the chair reserves the right to make an announcement before accepting any motion for adjournment at this time. As always, want to make sure I always want to remind folks to contribute to the Pittsburgh Promise, because you're investing in the future of our children. Also NEED, which is an organization, Negro Education Emergency Drive, and also the Homewood Children's Village. And as I was looking, I was trying to find the article about the news involving a teacher at Carrick High School who was involved in a traffic accident, the math teacher there. I know his last name starts with a P, but I don't have the name in front of me, but our concerns and prayers go out that he has a successful recovery from that accident. And That's about it from this standpoint. With that, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Motion by Mrs. Scalise, seconded by Mr. McCray. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Sit tight. We're going to move on to the next portion of our meeting momentarily. I'd like to call the August 21st, 2013 meeting of the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit to order. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call?
Here.
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 Present.
Here.
Present. Will board members please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Been moved by Mr. Eisler, seconded by Mrs. Azuda and Mrs. Scalise. Mrs. Azuda, we'll give you that one. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes. Committee report on education is before us. Are there any questions, comments at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley? Yes. Mrs. Scalise?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Motion's approved, 7-0.
Let's move on to the committee report on business that is before us, submitted by Mr. McCray, Business Finance Chair in this committee. Are there any questions on the report that were not addressed at agenda review? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Scalise?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes. The committee report on personnel is before us. Are there any questions or comments on the report at this time? Mr. McCray.
I just want to note that they're bringing somebody back from furlough. That's great. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions or comments, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley? Mrs. Scalise?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Motion's approved, 7-0.
Are there any other items that need to be brought before the board at this time? It's been moved by Mrs. Scalise, seconded by Mrs. Azuda. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.